Hello and welcome to the Planner Pals podcast, a podcast hosted by two true planner pals. My name is Mark and I go by Mark Your Pages.
And I'm Jess, or Jashi Corinne, and in this episode we're talking about something that I get pretty excited about, and that is decoration. But not just decoration, the skill behind decoration. The things that make it so that you can decorate your planner in such a way that gives you kind of the warm fuzzies, the good feeling, as opposed to putting a whole bunch of stickers down and then realizing, oh look, I just wasted all those stickers and I don't even like the end outcome. But what is even more exciting than decoration is the fact that while typically this podcast just has your two true planner pals, we actually have another planner pal joining us today. This one you may know. She is a former wedding photographer turned content creator full time. We would love to give a big shout out to Erin of Erin Smith. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored that you think I'm good enough at journal decorating to have me talk about this with you.
No, you literally were the first person we thought of when we were talking about different ideas and whatnot. I was like, you know what? I'm really bad at this. I just feel like it's a skill. I don't know that I have it. Like, who else would be someone that we could talk to about it? And literally, your name was the first one that popped up, and we're like, let's make it happen.
Thanks, pals.
So the first thing we want to chat about just from a whole is just going to be decorative planning and kind of how do we get to the point where we are. Now, I'm kind of backseating this conversation because I'm not as decorative planning. Maybe we want to define it a little bit of like what we think it is, because for me, sometimes decorative planning, honestly, is just putting some stickers on a page, maybe, gluing something in. And I'm like, I've decorated. But I feel like what you two do in your planners or have done in your planners is just like next level. I don't have that skill. So I'm just going to sit back a little bit and let you all share about how you got to where you were, because I'm not there at any point yet.
I see you with your stamps. You'd be decorating. You'd be with that creative lettering and such. And of course, as per always, we are not the journal police. We are not here to say, like, this is the hard and fast line of where decoration stops or ends or whatnot. But decorative things can be very maximalist. A lot of decoration. It can be very small touches, minimal kind of decoration. In terms of decoration, by your standpoint, Erin, what would you consider to be like, yes, this is decorative versus no, that is minimalist?
I feel like we actually have a pretty good spectrum amongst the three of us. And there's definitely more minimal than Mark, but I would say Mark is at our minimal end of our spectrum. And Jess, I'd say you're probably in the middle, and then I'm maybe more towards the maximalist side. But really anything that is an aesthetic choice that you're making in your journal is decorative, even if you're not adding stickers and washi tape. If you're choosing to do something in a pretty font for a title, you're decorating it. So we're kind of all doing it a little bit, even if we don't realize it.
No, I think that that's a pretty good way to define it as well. It's like, anything that is done for that visual element. So it doesn't have to be the typical kind of traditional, I guess, the way that we would think of decoration in a planner. Because if you say just decoration to me, my mind will instantly go to that kind of like hardcore maximalism, like people be whipping out their paints maybe, or doing a whole bunch of doodling and drawing and such. But technically speaking, you can have a very wide spectrum for decoration. So it could be those really small touches. And I think that if you keep that in mind when it comes to thinking about your decorative stuff in your planner, it can make it a lot more approachable for people if they keep in mind that it doesn't have to be like hardcore, all the decoration all over the page all at once.
Absolutely. I would say it's actually what drew me to creative planning and, the old bullet journal method in the first place, because being able to change it up every month is what was really exciting to me. And so that's kind of what's kept me coming back. I was one of those people who would abandon a planner after like 3 weeks of the year, like a pre-printed planner. But I haven't missed a month of keeping my creative journal since I started it in September 2017. So it's the decoration that keeps me here.
I think that having it as kind of like that foundational part of your journal and keeping it so that then you do actually come back to it and use your journal or use your planner can be really helpful for people. Because, like you said, if you're going to quit a pre printed planner 3 weeks into it, it's like, cool, wasted my time, wasted my money, wasted my efforts or whatnot. So, having something fun like that to bring you back to it can almost become not just a decorative thing, but almost like a functional thing for you, because it's like, yeah, this keeps me coming back and actually using my productivity or planning system. So I kind of almost see decoration as like a functional fundamental of my planning.
Yeah, it's part of a creative practice, right? It's kind of a self-expression method as well as a planning method. I think that's really cool.
So when it comes to that planning part, because I think a big part of the conversation when it comes to decorative planning is it's a waste of time, right? You're spending so much time decorating your pages and doing this whole piece. I'm going to be like the devil's advocate of like the conversation today, is it's like the more minimalist guy. I don't believe this, right? But at least we've probably all heard this throughout our time of sharing our things online in YouTube. So for someone like you, Erin, that like kind of like you said on that farther side of the spectrum of decorative planning, do you see that as a waste of time, or how would you kind of have that conversation with someone that was like, you're wasting all your time doing that, like it's not productive what you're doing because you could be doing so much more at that time? Like what's your usual counter conversation to that when you're hearing that?
Let a girl have a hobby. I feel like we're really there's such a big trend at the moment towards analog hobbies and just like getting offline. And I think, we've come from a place of wanting to be really, really productive all of the time to being like, it's okay to rest actually. So this is a way to bring both of those together. And as maybe if I was being a little bit cheeky, I would also say, well, it sustains me as a career. So clearly it's not a waste of time.
No, that's an amazing answer to it. I think that's a really big part. I think that you can both have a hobby and be productive at the same exact time, right? Like it's a fun thing to do. So if it's one of those things, as we've talked about in past episodes too, I mean, if you're doing so much decorating, but then not using your journal because you're spending so much time in it, like I can agree, right? That's not a positive use of your time. That's not a positive use of your journal as a whole, really. It's just kind of like you're just throwing things into it because you feel like you have to, versus I think where probably a lot of time comes into this where you finally realize like I can do both. I mean, I know for myself there are weeks when like I don't have enough time to sit down and do like a crazy ass spread, right? And I know the time that I have, so I'm like, okay, bare bones, real minimal, get it done this week. And there's other times where I'm like, oh, I've got this idea and I'm working through it and penciling it in throughout the weekend, and then finally go to sit down and like execute on that idea. And at no point during that process for me am I like, oh, this is a waste of time. I'm like, yes, this is helping me work towards a goal of something that I want to. And then I go ahead and start using it. It's always a very positive feeling for me.
I also feel that it very much depends on what the purpose is for your planner or journal. Because for some people, the decoration is the purpose. Like it is the creative aspect in terms of like their hobbies that they have or whatnot. It is the thing that brings them joy and is cup filling and such. Whereas maybe the productivity aspect of planning isn't actually what they're there for. So that could also be a factor.
I had that thought too. I've definitely had comments from people a few times who are like, I'd love to keep a journal like this, but I don't have enough planning to justify it. And I'm like, cool, start a junk journal. Like, it doesn't actually have to be about planning. It can be, or, a reading journal is so much fun to decorate. Like, I think even if it is a planner setup and then you didn't use it, if you had a good time setting it up, it wasn't wasted. And now you have something pretty to look at. And if you want to, you can go back and fill it with other things, but you also don't have to.
I love that as a sentiment. If you had a good time with it, it wasn't wasted.
I think also something too that I've been thinking about a lot recently with that conversation is find the size journal that works for the size of your life at that point too. Like I know B6s are like all the rage right now because it's a little, it's smaller than that A5 size. You can kind of fill it up really nicely versus going into that conversation, right? And saying, I don't have a lot going on, and then grabbing like a B5 off of your shelf, right? And like trying to fill out an entire page in a week, and you maybe make it halfway down, or kind of the opposite. That's what's happened to me, where I was like, you know what? I'm using like several pages a week in an A5. I need to step it up a notch and kind of go to a B5. And like right now, I'm actually kind of on the opposite side of that. This is the great thing about having a library of blank notebooks next to me, is that I can say, you know what, right now, life does not require a B5 size. I can go down to a square or an A5 and kind of approach it that way. And I think that's like a really important part of it as well, is like, hey, I don't have a lot going on. Well, you can decorate inside of a smaller one, fill out the notes that you have, and feel good about both things at the same time.
I love that you consider going to a square like a size downgrade, because that's still huge to me. I'm working in a travelers at the moment for my personal journal, and yeah, I think going to a square sounds terrifying.
It's so much fun.
I think that changing up a size can be a really great opportunity to play around with decorative stuff. But I think that one of the things that really possibly holds people back from getting started with decorative planning or, decorative journaling or whatnot is just like that fear of messing up, or like worrying that you're not going to be able to execute in the way that it is in your mind. Like the number of times I have had a really great idea for a layout and then I just cannot get myself to actually put it on paper. So I feel like those kind of things and the possible mistakes that come with trying to decorate your planner, that can definitely hold people back. In terms of like, beginner mistakes or mistakes that you made through your decorating journey, Erin, what do you reckon some of the ones that are kind of common for people to make?
I don't love the word mistakes necessarily because I feel like anything to learn, you kind of have to go through it to get to the other side and be in a place where you feel comfortable with things. But I definitely think trying to jump in with too many things at once can be a little bit of a hurdle when you're decorating. So if you're just starting out, I would recommend going with something a little bit simpler. Maybe just pick like a couple of colors and work with those. Definitely buying a lot of stationery before you've kind of really committed to the hobby can be a bit of a trap because then you're also overwhelmed, not just with your page space, but with how much stuff you have to choose from. You might feel like you have to use all of it. And this one's really hard for a lot of us. And it was hard for me in the beginning too, but we can reach a point where we let it go. I think it also helps that I'm Australian and we just have this she'll be right attitude about most things in life. But just letting go of a mistake. I know it's so hard to do, but like in the long term, anything that you've done in your journal isn't really going to matter in a few months from now. And you're probably not going to remember your mistakes as much as you're going to remember the things that you made that were beautiful. So just trying to let go of that perfection. I know it's hard, but it's really important.
I like what you said there, though. I think you have to be able to make those mistakes, though, to then get to the point where you can let those go. Like this past week, I was doing some stamping and I just stamped something down. And I always tell myself, never stamp the same thing twice, right? It's going to blur, it's not going to look great. And I went ahead and did it anyway. And I was like, this looks like poop on my page. And I literally just moved it down a line, popped it, looked great. And I just left it there. And I was like, wow, Mark, because usually I would have been like, cover that up, do it, like I was find all these other solutions to try to fix it. And almost to your exact point, I was like, it doesn't matter. It's a weekly. It's literally not even a 2 centimeters of a space. Like it's not a big deal, and kind of moved along from there. I'm also a big proponent though, in that same breath of saying cover mistakes with stickers or like washi tape. Like it's a really great way. Your page looks really cool and nice, and you've used some of the washi tape that you never ever use usually. Cover up a mistake, you're good to go.
I love that it's stamps for you because to me, stamps are like an expert level journal tool, and I tend to avoid them a little bit. And you're like minimalist guy, and you're out here with your stamps. I love it.
I also love that we sometimes do have to learn multiple times over. It's like, okay, the first time I tried to double stamp something, it didn't work. The next time I tried to double stamp something, it didn't work. And now you're like, what, 5 years into the piece of stamping? You're like, you know what? Maybe if I try it this time, maybe if this time I double stamp it, it'll be okay. No.
My mistakes usually come from being impatient. So it's like erasing something that's not dry yet because there's pencil under it, or like, I'll just put this here for now. And then if I change my mind, I'll move it. And then you try to peel it up and it tears your paper underneath. And you're like, why did I do this?
I mean, it's funny when you say like stamps are expert level, whereas like for me, anything that involves layering paper or stickers or anything that's just so outside of my space. It was actually like one of the things I first thought of when we were planning for this episode is that that's why I'm like, I think that decorative planning is a skill. Like very much a skill, especially when it comes to that, because for me, any mistake I've made with like real like decorative, again, for me, decorative is like adding paper and stickers and all kinds of extra stuff on my page. Where I've tried it, I was like, oh, layering, I've seen people do it, it looks so nice and beautiful. Erin, you being one of those people that can like layer things beautifully, I just don't think I have like this spatial awareness for it, because I'm like, okay, square piece of paper, okay, sticker on the corner, and then I'm like, well, then now where do I write on here? Like maybe I put a washi piece over here, and the next thing you know, it just looks like the bottom of my trash can after like a crafting session. Everything's stuck together and it just it looks horrible. So like that's how I see a lot of this, where I was just like, yeah, not that. That's why I like stamps, because it's literally like stamp, ink, paper, done. I'm like, yay, and it looks really nice.
That makes sense. I think you're right in that it's a skill, but what's great about a skill is that anyone can learn it. It's really something that it's kind of there are formulas that you can apply. It is a creative thing, so there's always going to be space for um, breaking the rules and doing whatever you like. But I definitely have some little cheats that I think could help you out, maybe.
Yes, no, let's share the cheats, because I think it's really important, because I know, like I said, for me, this is an area where I'm like, I can never do that. Whereas like you just said, you're like stamps, yeah, I could never do that. So we can certainly get into that space.
So a little bit of story time. When I was in school, I did art class all the way through until like the end of high school. And my art teacher repeatedly, the feedback she kept giving me was, your thing is just a thing floating in space and it has no background. Like, I need you to layer things. And I was like, but I poured my heart into this. What do you mean it's not deep enough? And I think I may have taken that and run too far in the other direction, because now I'm like all about the layers. Everything needs a background all the time. But as far as jumping into, if you wanted to layer your ephemera, your stickers, your tapes, your pieces of paper, I kind of have like a rule of 3. So if you're looking for a cheat sheet of a way to get started without kind of feeling overwhelmed, I would recommend you go for something solid, something textured, and a detail. So your something solid could be a solid piece of washi tape that's just one color, or it could be a piece of paper that maybe it has a little bit of a pattern on it, but it's not anything too eye-catching. Something that just kind of disappears into the page and is like, I'm a color. And then you're going to go for your texture. My very favorite texture that I use all the time is a wide washi tape with some script lettering on it, because it gives you a little bit of something, but it's not interesting enough that you're like, I want to read this piece of washi tape. It's just kind of there going, a bookish vibe, you know, something a bit vintage. And then your detail could be a sticker sheet that you really love, or it could be a roll of PET pre-cut tape, preferably pre-cut, because the ones that aren't pre-cut just take so long. And you're just going to kind of stack those things. So everything needs to be touching the thing that came before it. And then you've got a little vignette in a corner or down the side, and you've got like, just stop there, leave it there, repeat anywhere that you've got a bit of space, instant theme.
See, that's my problem. I don't know when to stop. I think that's my biggest like downfall when it comes to this stuff.
And that's something that's trial and error, and that depends where you fall on that minimal to maximal spectrum as well. Like, I might stop here, whereas Mark, you might stop more like here. So that's personal preference.
Throw it in the trash. How about you, Jess?
Yeah, I think that the rule of 3, I love a rule. A rule just makes things so much easier. And I do think that being able to, keep it to those combining of elements that do like work nicely together. If you have something in this category, something in this category, something in this category, it can make it so much simpler. I also just love 3 as a number for decoration in general. Like 3 items on a page, 3 colors in a color palette or something like that. It just always seems to be a nice approachable amount, because for a color palette in particular, if you have 2 colors, like, sure, okay, like what, gold and blue, beautiful, absolutely excellent.
Love that color. That's my color palette in here.
I know, right? It's so good. It's just a classic. But then if you kind of add white as a color into that, now it's just like a little bit more complex. I know white people say like, oh, it's not a color. I'm like, yeah, sure. Talk to Pantone.
It really is. If you're working in a blackout journal, then it's really a color.
Oh, definitely. Not that I shall be using a blackout journal. I'm far too impatient for that. But gosh, it looks so good when people put the white ink on the black paper. Urgh. If you think about it in terms of like just adding in one extra thing to make it a little trifecta, a little trio, I find that that just makes it very still approachable, but also just adds a little bit of complexity, which can give you a bit more flexibility when it comes to setting up your layouts. My current palette that I'm using has a pink, kind of peachy gold kind of color, and a dark gray, and it means that then when I go to put headers in or whatnot, I have choice. I can use one of the 3. I can, put down second line highlights in whichever of those colors, and it just gives you a bit more to play with in terms of adding visual interest while still keeping it not overwhelming.
Is it terrible that I know exactly which tape set you're talking about when you mention those colors? Because I've used it too.
I know, right? I had such FOMO. See, this is the thing. If you want inspiration, just go and check out what everybody else is doing, and then you'll see that they're all using the same thing, and then you'll have to use the same thing.
That tape set's the perfect example, though, of like a great place to start. If you just get that tape set and a couple of pens, there's a theme. It's perfect.
Yeah, I find that working in themes in general just makes decoration a lot easier, or at least I personally find it. Is that part of the reason you use themes, Erin, or?
Yeah, I definitely started, I do my themes monthly in my planner, and I will just do whatever I like for a page in something like my reading journal just to match the book. So that one's very eclectic. But as far as like monthly themes in my journal, I'm pretty sure I only started doing that because I saw other people doing it, but it is just enough time for me to, I feel like, get really good use out of some stationery, sometimes even use some things up, which is always a good feeling, and then move on to something else before I get sick of it. And I think that's the sweet spot for me.
Yeah, I think that that novelty factor can definitely add to enjoyment. And as you kind of mentioned, a month-long period is a sufficient amount of time to like almost get your reps in and practice utilizing the materials in different way, which can be very helpful when it comes to, future designs and future decorative escapades that you're doing, because you start to find these formulas that you use for yourself in terms of how you bring elements together, and that can make the decoration just a little bit more approachable, which is nice.
So, Aaron, when you're talking about your monthly themes, for those who maybe haven't seen inside of your journal, so are you setting up a theme and then you're setting up your entire month at one time? Or do you still set it up week by week, but you're just keeping out those materials to keep that theme going?
I was kind of going somewhat week by week on my weeklies, which is where most of my planning really happens, like to-do lists and events and that kind of thing. I'm not doing a huge amount of habit tracking and that kind of thing. I've kind of moved away from the classic bullet journal kind of tracker systems, I think. But I do it at the moment, I do it all in one go. The traveler size makes it a lot more approachable, I think, in that way, because it's small. It doesn't take as long to set up. So I do recommend a smaller journal if you are just starting out, because it's a lot less intimidating. But yeah, I've been finding that setting up a whole month in advance is okay for me. I have a pretty repetitive kind of life schedule. I'm most of the time just right here in this office when I'm working. So I feel like that benefits me. I think if you were someone who was in a more kind of flexible situation though, where things could change a lot from one week to the next, it would probably be more beneficial to do things as they come rather than in advance. But I like doing it all at once.
That was going to be my next question, actually, was, how do you plan ahead for things that you don't know that are happening? But what you're saying there is that at this point in your life, in all of these years of journaling, you've just realized like you kind of use this exact amount of space, therefore you kind of plan in advance for it versus not really knowing. Because that's how I feel. Like I could probably never really fully set up a month in advance because every week is a bit different for me. That's why I like to do like a week by week planning, even though I think planning a month in advance may be helpful for like, instead of giving myself like a next week section in my weekly, I could just turn the page and write it down on that next week's page instead. But I'm always one of those people that's like, well, what if my notes and my task and kind of all of those go past the pages I've already set? I don't want to have to like find another space for them to live in those following weeks. So that's, I think, a really important part of it for those people who are trying to figure out like, well, can I or should I set up a week in advance or should I not? Like you said, I think your rule is a very good one.
I actually used to plan even further in advance because when I was a wedding photographer, I was quite often booking weddings a year and a half in advance. And so I needed space to be able to keep track of all of that kind of stuff. I don't have to do that so much anymore. My planning, I can be a lot more flexible, like in the short term than I used to be, which is nice. But yeah, I also am just kind of fine with blank spaces. Like if I have left too much room for a weekly, that honestly doesn't bother me. I know some people don't love what feels like wasting paper. I feel like we've kind of touched on this already, but as long as I had a good time with it, it's not really a waste to me. And sometimes you'll have a week where you were just really unwell and maybe it's not so much fun, but you can put like, okay, well, I started feeling unwell on this date and then I went to the doctor on this date and I started this new medication on this date. And then you're like, well, that's still useful. Not talking from experience a month ago. What do you mean?
So I know you mentioned that you mainly do monthly themes. I say it like I don't watch all of your monthly plan with me, so like, whatever, fangirl moment. Oh my gosh. But I know that in your mystery journal that you set up, you've also been doing some kind of like overarching themes. What do you see the kind of benefits of that versus more of a like pick and choose on each individual kind of like a monthly basis compared to that one?
Yeah, so the mystery journal is, just in case anyone's not familiar, it's a project where I set up a journal in advance for 6 months and then give it away on my channel. And the main reason I started doing it is because as a self-employed person for a very long time, my own journal's not always that relatable to people, and I don't feel like there's always that much inspiration they can take from it. So the mystery journal was my personal challenge to come up with something that anyone could use, give some more inspiration to people who are maybe in a more traditional employment situation than me. And then, what am I going to do with it at the end? So I do it in advance and give it away. And the last few I have been theming kind of an overarching theme. The first one was magic, and then we had a floral one going at the moment. The next one's coming up soon. I won't tell you what it is yet, but my channel members know. I guess it was really a personal challenge to myself, and I have more stationery than any one person could ever possibly use. So it's been fun to look at my collection and be like, I have a lot of flowers. and I'd like to move some of them along. So let's do a floral themed journal, which has bitten me in the butt a little bit because floral is kind of my own fallback. So I feel like I'm at a point now where I'm maybe pushing out a bit too much floral content. And there are people who aren't into flowers. I'm like, I'm sorry, I promise I'll do some stuff that's not flowers soon. But it has been really fun just to kind of lean into a theme. And because I'm setting it up quite quickly, I do that one over the course of probably 6 weeks. It You can really get into a flow, and it kind of helps to stay in that headspace and be like, we're just going to think about flowers for a while.
Yeah, I do think that it can be kind of nice in a way to give yourself that overarching theme to add a little bit of like some boundaries or restriction on yourself, because otherwise, like, you know, world is your oyster, like so many different options for a theme, like inspiration can strike from pretty much anywhere. In terms of like the most common places for you to find theme inspiration though, where do you find yourself most often either looking for it or most likely to have it like strike at that point?
Honestly, my own stationery collection is typically where I go. So usually if I've just got some new stuff, there'll be something in there that I'm excited about. And I'm like, I need to use this moon tape immediately. And so I'll go through everything else that I've got and kind of build a theme around that. But likewise, if I'm not feeling very inspired, if I have no ideas, sometimes I'll go to my channel members and be like, help me pick a theme. But sometimes I'll just go to my collection of washi tapes, or I'll go through my folder of papers and just try to rediscover things that I already have and go, oh, wait, I haven't used this yet. And it's these colors. What else do I have that's these colors? What else do I have that feels vintage or whatever it is? And I try to just shop my stash as much as I can. I definitely consume a lot less planner content than I used to. I used to go looking for inspiration on Instagram a lot, and there is still a lot of wonderful inspiration there. But I'm just trying to spend less time looking at screens. So try to keep it looking within my own office first.
I love that because I think that's where a lot of people fall in the same thing. We buy all of this stuff all the time because we see it and then we put it in a drawer or we organize it away. Right now, I'm going through a project where I'm cataloging all of my stamps, so all of my clear stamps and my block stamps, because the problem that I'm having is I have them all, but then I'm like, oh, I need days of the week. What collections do I have that have days of the week on them? So, like, I'm using Airtable right now and I'm like doing this whole project because I've already stored them. I have them all stored and I labeled all the good things, but now I'm like, okay. And it has been amazing. Like, one, because I've been going back through things that I forgot that I had. Like, one of my favorite stamp sets was from Archer and Olives. It was their familiars from like a number of Halloweens ago, but there's just some really cool looking animal stamps that are on there that could just be like really cool centerpieces for a page. I'm also just like realizing how much I have, things I haven't touched in a while. And it's been great because I've been doing exactly that. I'm like, oh, I like write it down. I'm like, we're using this next week. And then I'm like, oh, wait, familiars. I think there was a washi tape collection that also came with that. I'm like, all of a sudden, like those things are coming together. And I love this idea because I'm not a real color person. So I'm more of like a image type of person. So I'm like, oh, snakes. Okay, to be serpents. What do I have for that? Right. Or potion bottles or like whatever it might be for that week. And that's been really fun for me. But it also is a really great way to do it. And it's funny because like what you said up front, like I never really considered myself like a person who makes themed pages, but like as you all are talking, I'm like, no, I totally do that. I'm like, oh, I'm going for like this idea, then technically it's a theme, and then every week is a different theme. I don't know. I always think of themes how you all kind of planned or have planned in your journals, which is like setting things up for an entire month. And my thing is, I think I would get bored of it after the first week. So I was just like, oh, well, now what am I going to do? It's already here. So it's been like a little eye opening. Like, oh, wait a second, Mark. Like you are, and it's okay. It doesn't have to be overly decorative necessarily to still be decoration and have fun with it. Just pop a little stamp and be like, yeah, stamp, decorated, plan, good, let's go.
I feel like one day we should all set up a layout for each other and try and use it for a week and see if it works.
Oh gosh. I'd be like, what is cyclical planning and why is this a weird start and it doesn't end on the normal day I'm used to?
And I'll just be like, cool, so here's your $5 weekly, you heathen. The weekend exists.
That's what happens when you use your bullet journal for work and you don't work on the weekends.
I've never had that, so fair enough.
That's how it works for me. One of the big things I was curious about, Erin, when you were talking about this, rules of three and things like that, maybe this comes into place here a little bit. When you are thinking about those themes, I know you said you're kind of shopping your stash. where you're starting from one thing and kind of building that out, like what does that look like for you in your process? Because again, we see a lot of the end results, and maybe like you said, if you're already watching your stuff on YouTube, you kind of see as it builds on itself. But could you share with the other planner pals like how you build out a theme and like how that process looks like for you?
Absolutely. So often it starts by making a really big mess. I will just go through everything and find anything that works in terms of color scheme or in terms of theme with the original inspiration piece. And then I'll bring that to my desk and I'll typically make a little mood board page with it. So I'll try out all of those things next to each other. Sometimes it's tricky if it's something like a little sticker set where you've got a limited number of the items and you don't want to stick something to a page that means you can't use it anymore. But I'll kind of just put down some washi tape or stretch it out if it's got a release backing and layer things together and just see what looks good with everything else. Get rid of anything that doesn't make the cut, try and pare it down. I have been known to do some setups with a lot of stuff, and that's really fun. I've kind of moved a little bit away from that now because I think it was taking a really long time. And when you record your content for the internet like us and you can see that this setup took you 6.5 hours, you're like, okay, maybe it's time to rein it in. But putting together a little mood board, it's like proof of concept, right? That the theme that you envisioned in your head is actually going to look the way that you thought. And then you can swatch pens against it. You can make sure that those colors match up. It's kind of my favorite way to do it. And I'll include that sometimes in my vlogs. And my channel members get to see that whole process behind the scenes for the mystery journal too. They help me pick all of the themes for that. So that's great because then outsourcing the ideas is like a little bit less mental load for me. It's also so much fun.
Yeah, especially if you're doing what, like 24 plus setups in a year, because what, you've also got the start of journal setups across 2 separate notebooks in theory. So that's what, like 7 per notebook times 4, 7 times 4, 28. 28 setups? Yeah, ugh, way too much.
I'd never done that math. Oh my God. That's wild. And then you factor in reading journals and things. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. And then like if you're doing any other kind of like specialty setups for anything in particular, then that's also going to add to it. So that's a lot of themes to be thinking of. But then part of my like, FOMO mindset comes in of like, oh my God, that's only 28 setups. There are so many good themes out there.
I definitely have journals I care more about the aesthetic of than others. So my actual planner that I use every day, I feel like I put some effort into, but something like my reading journal, I'm not mood boarding that bad boy. I'm jumping in with whatever feels good in the moment and we just see where it ends up. I have a bit of a slogan, which is don't think, just stick, which probably isn't helpful if you're a beginner at this kind of thing and you're trying to learn some techniques to make stuff look better. But I promise you in a year or two, you'll be like, don't think, just stick, put it wherever instinct feels good. That's my reading journal.
The mood boarding though, because then at least you do get that kind of like test run or trial run of how things work together. Because I find that the thing that I get most caught up on is color paletting and making sure that the colors match across materials. Because if I, pick out a tape or a sticker set or something that has like a very particular shade of green, and then I use a pen that's like the wrong shade of green, I'm like, cool, just throw the journal away. I've ruined it all. It's just not for me anymore.
A certain shade of green. Sorry, you just made an Incubus reference and you didn't even know it.
Oh God, I'm so good at doing that.
This whole conversation so far is kind of blowing my mind because I'm just always like sometimes thinking of one thing to do in the week is just like a lot. And you all are like, oh no, 27 different themes for each notebook. I'm like, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine.
That's across the year. That's not for a week though.
Like on hard mode, doing it weekly anyways, you have to do 52 individual themes plus a start of journal setup. So out here, we're on like, the measly 28 and you're just like, yeah, 53, crown it.
I guess, but I don't know. I just feel like it's a lot of thinking for multiple journals, I guess, and doing it. I get why, right? Like it makes absolute complete sense. And you're, like you said, this isn't just, something fun you're doing on the side. Like this is also your full-time job essentially as well, too, right? So like having those ideas, but utilizing them too, not just always creating them. Though the mystery journal thing I think is very cool. I think it's an awesome idea, especially knowing that like at the end somebody gets that, right? Like that's a really fun thing to do. And also to be able to go back and watch the process as that's been created and then potentially win that, which is awesome, which I think is cool. One question I do have for you, Erin, again, because I know that we've been like talking about how amazing you are at what you do. So you've talked about the process in which you do it. I'm also curious about like the tools of the trade. When it comes to like putting these things together, what are some tools that you feel like are like must haves when it comes to being like a decorative journal in your sense of what that looks like?
I love when things are already cut for me. So I'm a really big fan of pre-cut PET tapes and pre-cut like kiss cut washi stickers and that kind of thing. I have a Cricut and I'm not afraid to use it. I love making my own Cricut stickers with like foil or print then cut, particularly for the mystery journal that's coming up. There's going to be a lot of stickers that I made myself for that one, which will be fun. I love a sticker tweezer. You can't go wrong with those, especially for things like PET pre-cut tapes. They can be a bit fiddly to kind of peel up. But my favorite thing to do with paper is to rip it. I think it looks so much more romantic and a little bit whimsical to have some like a torn paper edge. I typically will almost never put down a piece of paper just the way that it was printed and cut by a manufacturer. I'll usually change it in some kind of way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm of the tool type though, where like with paper specifically, I'm like, I don't know that I want to cut like tear it because I know me, I'll be like, oh, tear, it would like tear across the other side, and then it's like not really usable. Like a lot of bind decoration, I tried to make usable. So like if I am going to put down another paper inside of my paper journal, which seems a little repetitive, right? But like I get it. I'm always like, oh no. Like I just got some like cutters to do like a deckled edge because I also like the way it looks, but also don't trust myself enough to do it the right way. So I'm like, okay, let's get something that cuts it to make it look that way.
What a great workaround.
Oh yeah, I mean that's how my life is, where I'm like, oh, I need a thing, or like Jess has talked about fussy cutting before, and like I don't know what I'm gonna fussy cut, but I have a fussy cutting tool now because I might want to fussy cut something.
No, I had one, I decluttered it. I was like, you are not for me.
I know, right? They're the worst. I'm so glad he's excited, but I'm like, awful.
This
Yours might be good, but I don't have the skills.
I just got this because Jess talked about it all the damn time.
No. You must not be remembering this correctly. I'm pretty sure that was distinctly in the episode of like our worst planning tools that we would not purchase again.
Oh, I thought it because you've talked about it so much. I don't know. I got it. Well, I will find something to fussy cut now because I bought this damn thing.
I will try to avoid fussy cutting at all costs, but if I have to, small scissors. Yes, and those are so
Much
good
better.
for your hands too.
Comfy grip. We love these ones, and they're sharp. Ouch. Yeah, proof of concept.
I went the other not comfy grip, like little tiny baby scissors.
Like nail scissors.
Yeah, and it looks like a little bird.
I have one of those too.
I know. How about you, Jess? Like, do you have any like go-to tools that are like part of your must-have for decorative planning?
I typically default to using a tape for the most part if I'm doing, a more decorative setup, one where it's actually got other materials than pens. Typically, I will kind of like center it on some kind of tape or sticker set. Usually, the sticker set is on a roll of tape because it's like a washi tape sticker set, so stuff it, it's a tape. And then I will just bring in other elements to marry with it. If we go with that idea of like the rule of three, I will usually keep it to like the tape, some kind of other neutral background type of thing that I could layer with that tape, and then some kind of like a pop of color. So that could be a marker or it could be something else. So usually I just let that tape or that kind of like more intricately decorative piece do the heavy lifting because I am not great at marrying lots of elements together unless it is just one of those kind of like standout pieces, more intricately detailed, more like, finely decorated, and then a whole bunch of background elements. If I'm doing a collaging kind of piece, then I can get pretty bulky in terms of those background elements. We might have a couple of different shades or different colors of background papers or something, but they aren't really there to draw focus because as soon as I start to bring in too many things together that are the type of things to draw focus, then I start getting very particular about how well they match together. I am the first to say, I'm a persnickety biscuit. I don't like it when elements clash or they don't look like they're from the same kind of artistry style, which is why I am definitely a sucker for a tape set as opposed to marrying like sets that were like not together initially or elements from one set and another where the decorative style doesn't really match. Like, if we go with the example of florals or something like that, if the type of floral does not look the same across multiple sets of stickers or multiple tapes, I won't use them together, which is why I'm much more inclined to just pick like, hey, this is my feature tape or this is my feature sticker set, and everything else is just there to support that kind of like main character.
Interesting. See, I'm totally opposite from you. 'Cause on the other hand, like, especially with my stamps, I'm like, oh look, this is like a little whatever. I mean, they're close, but I think what I'm also doing at this point is just like trying to use my damn stamps. I'm like, this is kind of a handwriting font, and this kind of also looks like a handwriting font. They are not from the same creator, the same font set, nothing like that. And I'm just like, yeah, it works. But I guess this is the good thing also for me because, like you said, you guys focus so much on like color and texture matching and all of that. I Some colors just look the same to me. So like I can't rely on that whatsoever. So like that's why my stuff tends to be very basic. And I think why I'm also nervous about doing that because like my entire life, it's always like, interesting. Why'd you put those things together? And I was like, they totally match. Someone's like, Mark, that's brown and that's green. That's not the same. And I was like, it looks the same to me. But like, that's, I think, a big part of it for me where I've just kind of fallen away from it a lot. I mean, I have so many just like the papers now that like Archer and Olive is giving out with like every release, every like new set that we get, every subscription box. I was like, okay, but like what do I do with these now, because I don't feel comfortable myself personally using them, because then it's like, you know, something very photorealistic from like one of those paper sets, and then I don't have anything else like photorealistic to go with it. So like I just kind of find myself just mixing and matching things because I'm like, nah, it is what it is. At least I'm using it.
That's a style in itself too. Like I think that's okay to do. I feel like maybe I'm not usually a fan of these myself, but you can get those kind of ephemera packs where there's a bunch of stuff all together. You'll have like a couple of tapes and some stickers and some papers, and they've been curated to all look good together. You really can't go wrong with something like that. So I guess that's how, like, pro tip for colorblind journal pals.
I did just get one of those from Journal Say. I didn't know that it was that, but it had like letters in it. It had PET stickers and like long pieces. It was all this thing. I was like, hey, I've got a theme here. No, I wouldn't do that normally. That was a total accident of a purchase, but I was excited about it. But then I went ahead and separated everything out anyway. So I'm like, I'll know if it works together or not when we get there. Like all these little, you know, train tickets, that'll be what it is. And then I'll be like, oh, some washi tape, some PET tape. Oh, and a random stamp that's in a different language. It looks like a train ticket. And that's my theme. I like that. I'm like, that could be a theme, just as like a screen calling theme that nobody would ever want to look like trash.
I didn't say that,
I
but
saw
I
it.
was thinking
I
it. No,
saw it in your eyes. I saw it in your eyes.
it's okay. You were talking about bringing stamps from different sets together. I'm like, I'm so happy that you're comfortable to do that, but I am not that way inclined. I'd be the person who's out there with their ruler, like measuring the line weight. So I'm like, no, this stamp is too thick compared to this one. They can't possibly be used together. Or I would use them together, and then I'd get out my, like, 001 pen from Micron and just go and like etch in extra line weight so that they do look like they match together, because I get particular about those kind of things.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't have time to make it look. I wouldn't even know, because then I would mess it up and then it would look like garbage and I'd be mad at myself. Like it's fine. It works. It's good. Next week is going to look totally different anyway. So who cares?
Turn the page. This week is dead to me. I'm done with it.
Pretty much.
Sometimes it's like that.
Sometimes it does be like that. But to your point about the idea of, those kind of curated packages or whatnot, for people who are just getting started with decoration and they do want something that feels cohesive, but they don't feel like they have the skill set to bring the elements together by themselves, that can be a really great place to start. Especially because oftentimes a lot of those ephemera sets have just like so much stuff in them that you can use it once and then again, maybe even for like a couple of months if you really, really loved the theme. I like to change my theme monthly, though it feels like a fresh start, but it could be something that does help out beginners.
So a little secret, I also watch the content that you guys make. And Mark, I know that you tend towards more of a monotone color palette. Is that because of your color blindness? Is that why you tend to stay in that area?
Oh, 1 bazillion%. The only place that I get a little crazy with color is inside of my fountain pens. And the only reason I'm able to do that is because I'm very meticulous about cataloging my inks as well and using my resources to find out the actual true color of an ink, because a lot of them look the same to to me. My color tags are literally red, blue. I have a little bit of teal in there sometimes, right? Green, but like I don't know like the variances of that. So there are times where I'm like, oh, okay, like this week, for instance, I'm using something that's called Blood Falls. And it's in my mind, it's red. And it is red, but then also because of my color deficiency, like parts of it kind of look a little brownish to me, like rusty. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's like rusty blood. Like, okay, you know, but a lot of the times though I do stick to just black. But I will say that a lot of times I do that, especially with stamps and stuff like that, is because I just think it looks really nice and crisp. You know, I come from a design background and like a print background that's moved into digital, so I think a lot of that like early design really kind of fell in love. I also just love like Bauhaus was like a really big influence in my own personal life. I also am a big fan of just like architecture and architectural drawings and writing, and most of that's in black, right? You don't really have a lot of variances in that. So much of that I think has influenced a lot of who it is and like who I am. And then a lot of times though, I just kind of rely and like really do throw it to the wind, where I was like, okay, this has some color in it. I'm just going to put it down and like, I'm not that worried about it. Where maybe other people are more specific about it. I'm just like, congrats to Mark. He used a color this week, you know, like go me. But at no point do I ever really honestly think like, oh, does this blue look good with this other color? Because most of the time I honestly couldn't tell you. My family over Christmas found out like just how colorblind I am. There was this TikTok that was like from an ophthalmologist who was like, you know, what I realized during Christmas is that it's a really sad time for those that are color deficient. And she showed two screens, like, here's what colorblind people see, and here's what like regular people see. And both looked exactly the same to me. And no lie, at the end of it, all three of the people in my house looked at me and said, oh, that's the saddest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And my one daughter was like, so you see everything in poop, green, and brown. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She's like, Christmas looks dull to you. I'm so sorry. I was like, oh, it's just always looked this way to me. So like a lot of that really just is like, I like the way it looks and I kind of go with it. But I think that you could honestly really say a lot of it is black and white or like very lightly colored. And if it does have a color in it, I probably don't know it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fascinating because I am that other end of the spectrum where I'm like perfectly matching my pens to the washi tape and trying to make everything look so cohesive. I just, that's where I live my life, you know?
Yeah, I just see like something that I think that I like a lot, you know, and I'm like, oh, this looks really cool to me, right? And so I'm like, okay, well, that's all that matters at the end of the day. Like if I see an ink that looks really interesting to me, I, I'm sure to other people it's like the most whimsical, fantastical color they've ever seen, and I'm like, this is a cool green, and I only know it's green because I read the description.
Well, I can imagine you out there making like rage bait videos being like, come with me to swatch this beautiful like dark green ink, and it's actually just like trash brown, and everybody in the comments is like, what's wrong with you? And you're just like, thank you for your support, I guess.
Blame my eyes.
There was a whole thing on TikTok last year where a lady found out that her couch that she thought was blue was actually grey. And then TikTok spiraled into this, do we have millennial grey because all the millennials have color deficiency?
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. It reminds me of that, is the dress gold or blue or whatever that was. And I was the worst person. I was like, I don't even know what it was it's supposed to be, honestly.
It's obviously green or poop brown. Those are the only two options.
Anything red basically is green or poop brown. Yep.
So obviously when it comes to picking a color palette, maybe for Mark in particular, it's going to be a little bit different and a little bit more challenging. But when it comes to actually selecting your color palettes for your journal setups, Erin, do you have any kind of systems or rules that you use for yourself for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think lately I try to keep it to something kind of simple, depending on what sort of the detail is in that three kind of the rule of three. My detail is usually the thing that has inspired a theme, and it sounds like maybe it's similar for you too, Jess. I'll typically just pick colors out of whatever that detail theme is. So if it's a very colorful floral tape, then I'll probably have a few options. If it's something that doesn't have as many variations in it, then it's a little bit more straightforward. You just kind of go with what the tape says. But I have run into a couple of situations where I thought, I've got this one specific use case here, my September theme from last year, this one burgundy kind of frame tape, and I don't know what to do with it, and I'm holding it up to my stuff and I'm like, oh, I don't know. So I actually have a little cheat for this. There's a website called Color Space. It's literally color.space, color spelled with a US spelling without a U, and you can put in a color. You can use a hex code, you can use an RGB code, or you can just use their little color picker tool to try to get it as close to the thing that you have and hit generate. And it will just use color wheels and stuff to generate you a whole list of color palettes to choose from. And some of them have got 5 variations, some of them have got 3. And you can just go through those until you find one that you're like, I think I have some aqua blue washi tape that I could unexpectedly pair with this burgundy thing. And it ended up being a really cool theme with a little bit of like baby pink as well. So that's a pretty good hack if you really don't know what to do.
Yeah, those color palette generators can be like super helpful, especially the ones where you can upload a photo or an image and it'll kind of pull the colors out of it. So if you wanted to do a kind of sunset vibe or whatnot, you can just go and find a picture of a sunset and it'll pull out shades that it think would work well, especially if you want to do something that's not necessarily out of the ordinary and so that it's like, you know, completely different to what you'd expect. Like we're not going to do an orange palette for a watermelon theme.
I mean, you could.
Some people might. It's cool. Might look a little interesting, but like, yeah. But it can be a good way to kind of like push the creativity a little bit or make it so that then you're doing a theme that might be kind of typical or, you know, a type of decoration that people have done before, but you're using colors that are a little bit more unique. That can be a fun way to do it.
Assuming you have the stationery in your collection to do it.
Yeah, I'm just going to assume that everybody else is a pen hoarder as well. I did a count of my pens the other day. I was very upset with myself.
But you're prepared for every eventuality, so...
Exactly. It's good to have options, even though sometimes having too many options can lead to analysis paralysis. Or like when you've got 2 colors that are like so similar, but you're like, but does this blue match better or does this blue match better?
Well, that's where I come down to comfort. I'm like, which pen is more comfortable to hold?
It's a good system for it. At least there's like a default, like, you know, way to apply a rule to it so that then you end up with something that you're going to be happy with.
If it's going to be a second line highlight, the Tombow always wins because the tip is just the right width for the 5mm dot grid. Yeah.
100% agree with that.
That's so crazy because I hear Jess talk about stuff like this. I'm like, that's a weird thing, like to know that it does that. And then you're like, yeah, I was like, oh, we were talking about our favorite tools, and I was talking about how much I like mild liners. And Jess was like, I don't, because it doesn't perfectly fit within the 5mm grid, but a Tombow does. I was like, that is wild to like know those things. But when y'all are as good as you are, you know those things.
I'm pretty sure Jess coined the term second line highlight. Now we all use it.
I think that I can't remember who I got it from, but I was just like, well, that's what it is. You highlight every second line. And now that seems to be like the common turn of phrase for it. But it is just a really fun way to like add visual interest, right? And readability.
Yeah. Really make clear the space where the planning will happen without having to draw a box around it. And it acts as a little bit of decoration too, because you get that pop of color. It's great.
So as someone who is, again, I'm still going to call myself a decorative newbie, at least from the other end of the spectrum, right, where I don't live. Something I'm curious about, Erin and Jess as well. You guys can share this because, again, I don't know where to start. So like if somebody like me wanted to start with your rule of 3, right, we're looking for like, what was it again? Color, texture.
Solid, a texture, and a detail.
What are some places that we could start doing this from your experience? Like what's the baby step into the other side of the spectrum of decorative planning?
It really depends on the purpose of your page, first and foremost, I think. So if it's something like a calendar spread, it's pretty important that your calendar fits on the page. So typically I would start by placing down the functional thing first. But if it's not serving a purpose like that, where maybe you're going to be putting some long form text around some stickers or something like that, then you maybe want to know where your decoration's going first before you jump in and write, because you don't want to then not have space left over for your pretty stuff. So I have a couple of go-to layouts that I use for my decoration over and over again. I have outed myself on these ones on my channel before, but once you find out what they are and you look at my stuff, you will see them everywhere because I just use them to death. I am an outfit repeater for stationery. So the first one I call corner collages. I think this is a pretty common one. So whether it's a full double page spread or just a single page, you have something in, say, the top left corner and the bottom right corner, or swapsies, you have something in the top right and the bottom left. And you have lots of space then still left. This is really good for particularly like doing some long form writing. You have some room still left kind of swooshing in an S shape down the middle. That's a really good one for that kind of thing. But you can also fit some habit trackers in around that kind of thing, all sorts of stuff. Next, I call my letterbox, which is like the widescreen bars that they put on movies to make them 16:9 aspect ratio. So you're really just completely covering the very top and the very bottom of your page. You have to be careful not to go too far so you don't eat into your planning space, but just a line and a line and you're good to go. And the third one is the same thing, but vertical. So columns, one on the outside edge of each page or just on one side if you're just doing one page rather than a double page spread. I use those constantly, but because I'm using them with different stationery, they look different every time. And people are like, oh, you're so creative. And I'm like, oh, I'm working to a formula.
I think it's so important. I mean, that's how I look at a lot of my weekly spreads. It's the same thing. I'm like, okay, it's columns that create 5 or 6 or 7 if I really want to include a weekend. But then I'm just using like a different stamp set or a different sticker set for like the top of that. And I just write the day of the week under it. It is pretty incredible, like how much that can change. And like, even though I know that from my spreads, like what you just said, like utilizing those spaces, I was like, no, that actually could work out really well. Like I certainly could just put, something across the top or even in the corner. It's like almost like having like a little fun corner of your page. I'm like, okay, everything else is productive. It's notes, it's tasks, it's the ongoings, but like I just want to have a little fun up here. It's like almost like giving myself like a little play space on my page, which I like. And I also like that I'm also bounding it as well, because then I'm not overthinking it and thinking, okay, I put this, okay, where else can I put that? And then I go too far. Like I said, that's always my downfall, is I'm like doing too much. But I like this idea of like just utilizing like these quadrants for it, and it kind of saves the rest of your space for the things you're actually doing. So I that's really helpful.
Sometimes the functional page space actually tells you, it sort of dictates the space that's left over that you can use for decoration. So something like a weekly, if you've got an A5 journal and you've divided it into that kind of 8 boxes, but you don't want to have a notes section, say you take out the one that's in the top left corner and you just put some pretty stuff there. The page just told you where to decorate. Same with something like a calendar spread. They're usually a bit wonky where like, the month starts on a Wednesday and it finishes on a Friday or something. And so you've got this automatic space in those corners that you can get a little bit crazier with than what's left around the outside. Like just listen to what your page layout tells you.
I like that. It's like filling the page, but just doing it in a more decorative way than leaving it blank.
I do think that having those kind of like set spaces to put your decoration in can make it a lot more approachable, which is great. And like, sure, it might be formulaic, but kind of as you said, Erin, if you're using different materials or supplies or like, even just colors or whatnot, you get a different finished product, which is great. That is definitely one thing that I do miss about the monthly calendar, is that you did have those kind of set spots that were good for decoration. But I suppose that also means that each time you come to a new calendar month, there's that kind of like decision kind of process that goes behind figuring out where you need to put things. Whereas somebody like me, whose calendars are all rectangles now, it's like, cool, no, it's letterbox or bust kind of a thing.
You just have to listen to it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess that in those cases, I could approach it as that kind of like figuring out different ways to decorate, because decoration, like we kind of said at the start, it doesn't have to be those typical, like, your stickers, your tapes, your like larger pieces of doodling or whatever else. It can just be those smaller kind of design choices that you make for yourself. So things like putting in the double line highlight or putting in a different lettering style or putting a border on the page, whereas, sometimes maybe you don't do that.
Borders are so good.
Yeah, there's just like so much variation that you can do to add those personal decorative touches and stuff, which also is a really great way to just make it your own. Like if we think about borders specifically, you have like the single line border, you have different weights of line or whatever, you have different colors. You could do a dashed versus like a hand drawn versus a ruled.
A little bit of washi tape.
Yeah, a little bit of like a small washi tape. I love a thin washi tape for that kind of thing, for dividers. And it's just a bunch of different ways that you can add those small decorative touches without it having to be those kind of like, things that our mind might default to when we think decoration. It doesn't have to be those kind of like larger focal pieces of like, ephemera and stickers and tapes and whatnot. It can just be those very small touches that add a little bit of visual interest, a little bit of flair and enjoyment, which is nice.
Borders are such a good way to kind of pull something back if you feel like something's missing. So particularly if there's like a corner collage going on, but it feels a bit disjointed and you're like, it needs something, I don't know what it is. It's probably a border. Literally just connect them around the outside and it's going to look so much more cohesive.
Yeah, this whole idea is interesting. Something that I've been not struggling with necessarily, but like moving from an archer and olive into the hemlock and oak that I have now, the numbers are a little bit off. So like the center of my B5, because it's 31 squares across. I have this one square gutter, essentially is what I call it. And so all the time I'm just basically like drawing two lines down the page. And I'm always just like, I don't love the way that this looks, where I'm just like, now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, Mark, instead of doing that, like pop a washi tape down your page, or use something like that instead. Like you said, it's one of those things where I had my brain, it's so funny, like for all this time, I mean, I have all this damn washi that I complain about all the time, and I'm never quite sure like how to use it. It's just not a go-to tool for me. I don't know what it is about it where I just like, I always feel like it has to be used like in a specific way. And usually it's always layering something or it just kind of looks weird on my page. But like this is like a really cool potential concept for it. Now I need to find only 5 millimeter wide washi and I'll be good to go.
They're out there. They do exist.
Don't tell me that. I have enough. I have a whole freaking wall. I have 2 buckets filled of it over here. I don't need to hear that. I need to fussy cut my washi.
Mark, your cutter that does the deckled edge, is it the one that has like the 7 different heads that you can slide around?
I have that one. Yes, I just got that one.
Pop your washi tape down and cut it with one of those things down to 5 millimeters. You don't need to buy a new one. If you've got some, you can make it 5 millimeters.
That's what I was just thinking, and actually, the other one I have, has these little attachments to it that kinda go down like a ruler, and I was just showing you guys showing them before because we love sharing stuff like this, like, little sticky, washy stuff that's here, but, like, I could certainly stick it down on a page, I feel like, and get it to the right measurement that I want. This has been an eye-opening adventure for me today. Like, I'm gonna be a decorative planner now, guys. I hope you're ready for it. Coming for you.
You have to send me all your spreads. I want to see.
They're going to be like, Mark, that's boring as hell. Okay, you put a piece of washi down the page. Congratulations.
You will not be graded, I promise.
I will be judged.
But also, if you wanted to like practice with your layering and such, you could also just top and tail your washi with like something else. I'm like thinking of you making a little baton in the middle of your page, like something. It doesn't need to be big, but it's just like adds a kind of like
With a sticker at the top and a sticker at the bottom.
yeah, exactly. A sticker at the top, a sticker at the bottom, and it kind of like anchors those things on the page. I think that this is the thing that, people often say, like, oh, how do I use washi tape type of a thing? And I kind of never really gave it a lot of thought. I'm like, you just do. Like, wow, I know, revolutionary, just do it. But maybe part of the issue that people are having is that there isn't something to anchor it. It's that idea of what you said, Erin, with floating in space type thing, nothing to really give it that depth. Maybe that's the issue people are taking with their tapes and stickers and not really knowing how to use them. It's because they do feel like they're just floating there in space with no friends. Whereas if you just connect it with the border or add like, a little bit of tape below it or on top of it or something, it kind of turns it into a very tiny collage, but something that gives it a little bit more meat behind it, makes it feel like it belongs on the page.
Yeah, I would say like definitely like I have all this little stuff too. I always forget what it's called, but like I call it washi tape, but I don't know that it is like kita stickers. I don't know. But like it's the same kind of thing where I have all of these little matchbox deals and I'm always kind of like, but like how do I use it on my page? Because like you said, it's just kind of floating there. So like I tend to like pop them down as like a quick header or something like that. Like I have all these great ideas and I have all of the materials to do it. It's just always that execution part. I just don't feel confident enough. I'll stick a sticker anywhere. It's not the problem of it. But like I want it to feel good. I want it to make sense. I think also otherwise I'm just plopping things down in a sticker book and like I would do something different with that. Like if I was going to do that, I would just do it. But I want it to look good and functional and fun. But I think a lot of it comes down to that confidence for myself as well.
Next time you can pop one down and then stamp over top of it.
Perfect. Done. I'm ready to go. Well, that's the thing too with like layering. I'm always like, oh, I don't want to add bulk to my page. So if I'm like layering papers and stickers and stuff like that, it feels like I'm going to have like this gap because again, I can't stop myself. So it'll be like I really stick it out of there. But that's actually really smart. I've never thought about putting a washi tape or something over a stamp. It doesn't add a lot of width to it that way. That's a good idea. All right. I have plenty of notes now. You've given me all these ideas. Watch out, world. Mark is decorative stamping now.
No, he's gonna steal our jobs.
Definitely not. They'd be like, who is this garbage person that's making this stuff on YouTube? Start a new channel so it can fail. You do not deserve to be monetized for this crap.
Why is it all green and brown? I don't get it.
It's Christmas themed. What are you talking about?
It's his style. No, people would just be like, that's Mark's style.
That'll be very on brand for him. Just like double stamped green and brown. Like, but now with a piece of washi tape over the top because layering.
I feel like you would get some pretty good traction with like the cottagecore like bard D&D community. I think that would go down really well actually.
Grass and green and dirty and old. Yeah, that's very much me. I think that that would work out great. Yeah, there you go. Rustic. I'm a trash person.
Well, I know that Mark obviously has his page of notes, but for anybody who is just getting started with decorating in their planner, anybody who's still feeling a little tentative and like, oh, I don't really know what to do or how to approach it or anything, do you have any good advice for our beginners out there, Erin?
I think my main piece of advice is just to be kind to yourself. I know it can be really frustrating when you're seeing people on the internet making stuff that you think looks really good and maybe you don't feel like yours measure up. I've been doing this for 8 years. You got to get some practice in before things start to really click. And I do have a video flipping through my first bullet journal if anyone wants to check it out. It does not look like what I do today. It is very far removed. But also, learning is frustrating. It's kind of part of the process to go through those periods of frustration to come out the other side. So when you're feeling that, try and embrace it rather than being like, this isn't for me and I'm just not good at it. That's actually a really necessary part of the process. So push through.
That's a great tip for our beginners. Mark, I know that you don't consider yourself a decorative planner, even though you're a bold faced liar. What would your advice be?
I mean, I think the thing is just finding what you're comfortable with. Something that I did very early on, before I even officially started bullet journaling, is I made just one of those little like multi-fold pieces of paper. And honestly, I also just folded paper in half and stapled it across the edge. And I was like, and this will be my bullet journal trial. I think you could do the same thing when it comes to this. I mean, some of the ideas that I have right now, I was just showing you all my new like leather bound like deal that I got here. And inside of here, it came with some of these papers that are lined, and I don't typically use lined papers. So some of the things like I'm thinking about on here is actually doing something, Erin, that you mentioned, which makes a lot of sense to me now that you've said it. I had to hear someone else say it for me to like know that it was a thing. But like this idea of like creating almost like these templates or things that I can reference for myself that like I know look good or that I've experimented with, and like who cares if it doesn't look good inside of there, but I can like refer to it and come back into it. So I think creating some of those, I love the idea of what you all shared about a mood board. I don't know how or what I would do. I'm assuming like little pieces of paper and color swatches and stuff like that. That's not me. So, but I'm sure it probably would be. But like creating maybe some of those ideas yourself and like having those as go tos. When you talked about like the idea of these like specific templates for like where things go, like that's something else you can do for yourself as like a reminder, right, as you're going into those pages. So like a lot of what you shared, is actually like a really great thing for me. I mean, I've done that for bullet journal spreads where I've gone ahead and I have, R&D journals where I've kind of just thought it out like on paper first, and I use those as reference sometimes when I need it. I also would just say, dipping your toe is a really nice way to do it. And it's hard for all of us planner people that like want to go all in and buy all the markers and buy all the things. Buying like a sticker set, like you said, is a really good way to do it. I'm a big fan of like Eric's Small Things. So like I also, because I'm not a good person at like pulling themes together, Eric's Small Things has a very specific look to her work. So like I know that I could pull from anything Eric's Small Things and it's going to look cute and cool and it fits inside of my aesthetic. So like that's another thing too, like find a creator maybe that you like, because a lot of times they have their way of doing things, whether it's stickers or stamps or whatever that might be. So for me, that's the easiest way to kind of do it, is you can stick with the creator and then you kind of automatically have things that go together. But that's really kind of all that I have for it. And I think for me really is just like, don't overthink it, because clearly I'm not. Like y'all are telling me that I'm a decorative planner and I'm like, I don't think I am. But maybe it's just, really sitting down and thinking about what you want that to look like. Or in my case, it's just experimentation. Every week is something different. My journal next week is going to look different because of this conversation that we just had. So I think the other planner pals too, like use this as permission to try something a little bit different. And be okay to know like this was experimental. Look at it at the end of the week and like critique your work, or I don't know, have someone else look at it and be like, is this garbage? and they'll tell you if it is or not.
Yeah, just invite me over with my red pen and let me mark up your notebook. I'm not going to do that. But I do think that the idea of applying a critical eye to things can be a really good beginner tip. Like, as you're looking through, Pinterest and Instagram and people sharing their journals and planners on YouTube or whatnot, look at it critically in terms of what about this is visually appealing to me? Like, what aspects in particular could I try and recreate in my own system because I like the way they look? So that could be, is it the color palette? Like, is it that combination of colors in particular that is giving me the good feelings inside? Is it the actual positioning on the page? Is it the way they've brought elements together? Is it just specifically that tape set and now I have to go buy it? Maybe. It happens to the best of us. But another thing that I would probably recommend if you're just getting started is really just kind of trying to simplify it down to that kind of like one main focal element or something similar. And like Erin has told us, using that rule of three to like pair it with a couple other things that aren't going to have a lot of kind of visual interest compared to the decorative thing. Like, they're still going to be visually interesting. That's why we're putting them on the page or whatnot. But you have that one kind of heavy hitter, that thing that is going to be more detailed or more of the focus of your decoration, and then have a couple like supporting characters, right? The background characters that are here for the main character energy of that heavy hitter. But Planner Pals, we would love to hear from you. When it comes to decorating in your journal and planner, do you consider yourself a decorative person? Do you consider the stuff that you're doing to be decorative? And if so, what are your favorite ways to decorate? Either let us know in the comments on YouTube, or you can hit us up at plannerpalspodcast@gmail.com or over on Instagram at plannerpalspodcast.
We have to say thank you so much, Erin, for joining us, not just with all of these amazing like tips and tricks and rules of three that now we will all remember, but for being our very first guest on the Planner Pals podcast. Like, this is a big deal, not just for us, but like for everybody, because now we just want to do this even more.
I'm so honored to be the first guest planner pal to come on the show. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, Erin, we want the Planner Pals to be able to find you. So where should they be seeking you out?
You can find me on YouTube. I'm just youtube.com/Erin Smith, just my name. And I'm over on Instagram as well, erinsmith.art.
Excellent. And of course, we have those linked for you in the description of this episode. So do make sure to go and check out Erin's stuff. There's a reason that she was the first person we thought of when it came to talking about decorative planning. So if you want more decorative planning inspiration, you're not maybe feeling super comfortable and you want to see somebody else do it, a definite pro, then make sure to head over to Erin's channel and check out all of the inspiration she has to offer you.
As always, thank you so much, Planner Pals, for checking us out and listening, and we will talk to you next time. See ya.